Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel, Taylor Talks Tales. Today I have my July TBR slash book haul combo video for you, and I am very excited because there are a lot of awesome books that I want to share with you, including 2 books that have been on my TBR slash anticipated reads for a super long time, and 1 entire series that I am hoping to binge this month. I will say I probably won't be getting through as many books this month as I have been the last few months because I'm actually getting ready to go on a backpacking trip. Tomorrow morning I am leaving for Olympic National Park with my dad and my brothers, and we are going to be backpacking and camping and doing all kinds of fun outdoorsy activities for the next 7 days or so. So I would say, especially because I'll need like a day to recover from the trip, I'll be off grid for about 8 days. But I am bringing 2 books with me because I always carry a book with me no matter where I go, and I have a very fun video project planned because I'm bringing my video camera with me on my trip, and hopefully I can somehow combine my love of the outdoors with my love of reading. So hopefully I'll have a fun little treat for you guys when I get back and can upload something cool. So stay tuned for that. I also want to say thank you so much for all of the love and support on my last video. I really appreciate all the kind words and sympathy for when I lost my grandmother. So you guys are awesome. Love you all and really appreciate you guys being there for me. So anyway, let's get into the books. I don't want this video to be too long. First thing I want to share with you is the Dark Tower series, which I'm sure several of you probably knew I was going to be sharing this because I've told a couple people that I was planning on binging this series for July. Now, I don't know if I'll be able to get through the entire series this month. We'll kind of have to see because there are also a couple anticipated standalone novels that I am also wanting to read as well, so we'll see how much time I have when I get back from the trip. But anyway, with the Dark Tower, so you have The Gunslinger, The Wastelands, The Drawing of the Three, Wizard in Glass, Wolves of the Kala, Song of Susanna, and of course, The Dark Tower. And there's also a shorter novel slash I think it may actually be a novella called The Wind Through the Keyhole, and I actually do have it, I just don't know where it is. I think it may have gotten mixed up with my brother's books or somebody else's books, so I'll have to track that down, but I'm definitely planning on reading that as well. So I'm looking forward to this. I love Stephen King, and I love fantasy, and I especially really like fantasy that has some kind of twist to it or something unique about it, and I think that's going to be this series. I've heard very good things about it, even from non-Stephen King fans who just like fantasy. They enjoy it, and of course Stephen King fans tend to really enjoy it as well, especially if they do like some fantasy. And I have read the first 3 books in this series, but it was a long time ago, and then something just prevented me from finishing the series, and it had nothing to do with the series itself. There was just some weird circumstances that prevented me from getting back into it. Now, I think it's going to be fairly fresh in my, it's going to be new to me in a way because everything about the series is kind of fuzzy, so it'll almost be like a new experience. So I'm really looking forward to it, and, I will keep you guys updated. I may end up reading like half of the series in July and half of the series in August, but we'll see. But anyway, now let's get into the standalone books. A couple of these are, I swear, books that I've been anticipating for a very long time, especially the first 2 I'm about to mention. One in particular I've had on my TBR slash anticipated reads list for practically a year. First book I want to talk about is Survive a Song by Paul Tremblay. This book has been on my TBR slash anticipated reads for a super long time. I swear it feels like an entire year because I knew when this book first got announced that this was something I was gonna have to read. The story, the concept really spoke to me. Paul Tremblay has been sort of an uneven author for me. I like a couple of his stories, but then there are a couple that were just like okay, and then there's like one I really didn't like, but I was really interested to see what he would do with this book. So this story is totally right up my alley. It has to do with 2 women. You have Natalie, who is very, very pregnant, and her friend Romola, who is a pediatrician. And Natalie ends up getting bitten in this altercation that her husband ends up getting killed in because there is a man who's infected with rabies, because there is this huge rabies outbreak that is happening in Massachusetts and the surrounding states. And what's unfortunate about this rabies outbreak is that it's fast-acting rabies. So symptoms can start showing up within an hour, and then people are becoming super violent and biting to transmit the disease through their saliva to other people. So Natalie gets bitten, and then Romola and Natalie have to sort of race against time to get to treatment, and everything is sort of collapsing around them, so it's almost like the beginning of an apocalyptic scenario, and of course a viral outbreak. And I started reading the first couple of chapters of this, but I just decided to stop because I realized I wasn't going to be able to finish this book until after my backpacking trip, because there's a lot of packing you need to do, so today's all been packing for me, and I realized I wanted to read this in close to one sitting as possible. So I'm going to get back to it when I'm done with my backpacking trip, but wow, I can already tell this is going to be a fantastic book. It opens really well, and it's totally my type of story, so really, really looking forward to it, and just can't wait to get to it after my trip. Next book is by an author. I've read all 3 of his books that were out before this, and this one just came out, and that's Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. So I didn't necessarily care for Final Girls that much. That was his first book, but I think he's really improved in his other 2 books. I really liked The Last Time I Lied and Lock Every Door, and this one sounds really cool. So it is about a young woman who, she grew up in this house that was almost like the Amityville horror type situation, where her house was really severely haunted, and then her family gets out, and then her father publishes a book kind of detailing what happened, and there's a lot of controversy behind it. Some people think it was fake, other people think it was real. Her father passes away, and so she ends up going back to the house, to the estate that she was living in, to kind of remodel it and fix it up for selling on the market. And then things start to happen, and she has to confront the past and whether or not it's, was this real, was it not? Just sounds really, really interesting, and I like Riley Sager's stories. They are very fast-paced and easy to get into, and they just suck you right in, and I'm interested to see. I know there's going to be some kind of interesting twist to this, so I'm looking forward to that. And, I'm always a sucker for haunted house stories, or like a book within a book, because I'm wondering if like parts of her father's book may end up in this. I'm not sure, but we will see. And I don't know, I haven't seen any reviews of it yet, because I know it just came out, and I kind of was staying away. I want to kind of make my own judgments about this, but I'm really looking forward to it. Also, I love the color scheme. It's going to look perfect with the rest of his books that I own, so can't wait to get to this. Another book that I want to share is Agnes at the End of the World by Kelly McWilliams. I believe this is the second book written by this author, and this one is also an apocalyptic tale. In fact, this even has to deal with a virus as well. This is about a young woman named Agnes. She's 16 years old. She lives in a cult, a full-on like fundamentalist cult in Arizona with her family, and it's like a very patriarchal cult and extremely restrictive on what they're allowed to do, to the point where her youngest brother has diabetes, and she has to sneak giving him insulin or he's going to die, because if you get sick, it's because God hates you or you did something wrong. So it's like very extremist. And she starts to get information about this disease that's happening on the outside, that's impacting all kind, like people and animals, just everything. It's called Petra, and it gives animals and people like a red sheen to them and causes them to be violent and act crazy. And it's about her trying to decide if she should escape the cult, because they're led by this crazy man who wants to put them all down in a bunker, but the bunker is not safe at all. And she also needs to avoid getting married. There's a lot going on with this story. I actually have already read this one, and definitely can't wait to share my thoughts in my what I read video for July. But if you're looking for an apocalyptic tale. This is a very interesting one. There is a supernatural element to it that I wasn't expecting, but, you know, I'm always a sucker for something supernatural and dealing with cults, and it kind of combined the two in a really cool way. Okay, so this book I'm about to share with you is one of the books that I'm bringing with me on my backpacking trip, and that is Ancient Sorceries and Other Weird Stories by Algernon Blackwood. So, I've read some of these stories already, but I didn't actually own my own copy, and for me, Algernon Blackwood, I really enjoy his work. He's a classic horror author, and he does a lot of like ghost stories and weird fiction. H.P. Lovecraft was a big fan of his, and several of his stories take place in the wilderness, specifically in like the woods. His story, The Wendigo and the Willows, I have read them, but it's been a long time since I've reread them, so I want to go ahead and read them while I'm on my backpacking trip. So I'm going to read this whole collection, hopefully, because I know I'm going to have some sort of downtime, especially in the evenings after we've, you know, unpacked and eaten and are just kind of chilling out. So I think this is going to be a great read, and I'm really looking forward to it. And the two stories I really want to get to are The Willows and The Wendigo. Next book is The Edge of Anything by Nora Shalloway Carpenter. This is a little different. This is actually a contemporary novel, but it takes place in the outdoors, so that is something that I enjoy quite a bit. And it follows two girls who are pretty different from each other. One is a volleyball star, and then the other is sort of an unpopular girl who's struggling with a lot of issues at home. And the volleyball star finds out she has some health problems and can no longer play volleyball, and kind of just is a big upheaval in her life, and she has to kind of come to terms with that. And then she becomes friends with the other girl while they are going out and going on outdoorsy adventures, is what I'm guessing. And this takes place in North Carolina, I believe, and so they're going to be probably in the mountains of there. And I've heard some good things about it, not a whole lot, but I've heard some good reviews, and they talk about the connection between the two girls. So it's a friendship-focused book, and I think it's going to be one of those books where they deal with a lot of issues, and it also involves nature and kind of coming together and healing, and I'm a sucker for those kind of stories. Those are sort of my feel-good stories, so I'm looking forward to this story quite a bit. Next one is The Worst Is Yet to Come by S.P. Mizowski. This one I am looking forward to because it takes place in Washington. So there is a 14-year-old girl. She is in middle school in this very small town in Washington, and she's kind of having a rough time with adjusting to her life, and she ends up meeting another girl at school, and they become really good friends, but there's some sort of supernatural element to it. In fact, the back doesn't really give away a whole lot. It just talks about the town is haunted by its history, scarred with the lingering spirit of broken and scattered families. And they talk about there's more to the place than memory and legend. Beneath the landscape, something malignant rages, and it will stop at nothing to find a route into the physical world. So I'm guessing some kind of supernatural ghosty or witch or demon. We don't know yet, but I'm sort of wondering if it may incorporate Native American mythology or legends. We'll have to see. It would be really cool if they did that. So, but yeah, looking forward to this. I haven't read anything by this author before, but I'm intrigued. So we'll see how this one goes. Next one is Shadowland by Peter Straub. This one has been on my TBR for a while, and I'm very excited to be getting to it. Also, look at this really cool old-fashioned cover, and I just want to point out the fact that I bought this book for wicked cheap. Half-price books have some decent prices, but I haven't picked up a book for that cheap in a very long time. Like $1.75 and then some tax was pretty amazing, especially for this really cool old-fashioned paperback. And this is my first outing to go to a bookstore since things started opening up in Washington. This one, it's about magicians. I don't know too much about the story, and in fact, on my paperback, it doesn't really give a whole lot. I know it takes place in Vermont, and there's some kind of estate in the woods where there are two people who are learning about magic, and only one of them will be able to make it out and be successful, and I think that'll just be a really fun story. I've heard that it's kind of a little bit of a weird book, but has a lot of magic, and it's a pretty dark, interesting story, so I'm looking forward to it. And there are a couple of Peter Straub books that I didn't care for, but a couple of Peter Straub books that I did like, so, and I have a feeling that I'm going to really like this one. It just sounds really neat. Next one up is The Wise Friend by Ramsey Campbell. This one is a fairly new release. I think it either came out in May or June, and I've been eyeballing this because it has to do with some occult stuff, and that just sounds really neat. I'm actually going to read the back to you because I think it summarizes it really well, but this is not my first Ramsey Campbell, but this is my most anticipated Ramsey Campbell. Patrick's Aunt Thelma was an artist whose work turned towards the occult. While staying with her in his teens, he found evidence that she used to visit magical locations to collect artifacts, and even the woods behind her house seemed to be the lair of an uncanny presence. But after her mysterious death, the articles she collected were nowhere to be found. Now an adult, Patrick has discovered her journals. Together with his teenage son, Roy, he visits the sites Thelma described. Each place he visits only brings further terrors. His experiences scare Patrick away from the sites, but Roy carries on the search without him. Can Patrick convince his son that his terrible suspicions are real, or is it already too late to stop what they've helped to rouse? Sounds awesome. I can't wait to get into this as well. It wasn't like as anticipated as Survivor Song and Home Before Dark were, but this is up there for sure, and I definitely am planning on getting to this at some point in July. This may be bumped to August, we'll see, but sounds very exciting. Alright, this next book that I'm going to show you is the other book that I'm bringing with me on my backpacking trip, and that is Max Brooks' Devolution, a first-hand account of the Rainier Sasquatch Massacre. And it's by the author of World War Z, which I enjoyed World War Z. And I can't wait to get to this book, and I think it's going to be a perfect read to bring with me on my trip because, I mean, this takes place in Washington, and it has to deal with Sasquatches, but not only that, but I know there's like a survival aspect to it. Like there's a city by Rainier that ends up getting impacted by, I think it actually Rainier explodes. Oh yeah, Mount Rainier erupts, which is totally capable, it's totally capable of doing at some point. Mount Rainier erupts, and there's this town that gets isolated and has to deal with that. And then there are hungry Sasquatches that are attacking them, and that just sounds awesome. I am really looking forward to it, and, you know, I think it'll be fun, and also because, I mean, I see Rainier all the time when I'm driving, so it's just like imagining that is just going to add a little something to this book, but I can't wait to read this. My goal is to try to finish both this and the Algernon Blackwood book while I'm on my trip, but we'll see. I don't know if I'll be able to finish both of them because I guess it depends on how much downtime I have, but very much looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be just sort of like a crazy romp with Sasquatches, so I'm looking forward to it. And then the last two books I have planned on my TBR, they were leftovers from last month, and I didn't get to them. I may also not get to them this month. We'll have to see, but they're a little bit lower on my priority list. But that is the Pilo Family Circus by Will Elliott, and this is essentially a clown story where there's this gentleman named Jamie, and he, due to several weird circumstances, ends up auditioning to become a clown in this like very mysterious parallel universe where there's the Pilo Family Circus, and it's like a very dark story, and I know he ends up there's a very dark element to this, and you know, I am looking forward to it. I was going to start it last month, but I just was not really in the mood for a clown book, so I set aside. I am looking forward to it this month if I get to it, but if not, it'll probably be an August book. And then the other book is Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. This one takes place in Victorian time, and we follow a lady detective as she is trying to solve mysteries, including one where there's a missing 10-year-old girl, and I've also heard that there are mermaids involved in this story, and I'm just interested to see how that plays out, but also there's like a gothic feel to it, and sort of a magical realism, and I'm looking forward to it. So I'm hopefully gonna get to these two books, but we'll just have to see how much time I have for the rest of the month. that concludes my July TBR slash book haul combo video. Thank you all so much for your support. It really means a lot to me, and I really appreciate you guys so much. I will try to keep you posted as much as I can, and I do know that I have quite a few subscriber videos that I need to get to. I promise I'll get to them. It's just June had some crazy things going on, and then my July schedule got a little bit messed up, and then I'm about to go on a, 7-day trip. But I promise there's some fun, exciting things that are coming soon, and, in the meantime, you guys keep reading. Let me know what you're reading for July, if you're planning on reading any of these books, or if you've read any of these books, what did you think of them? And, I will talk to you guys soon, and I hope you guys have a lovely evening. Please like, comment, rate, subscribe, and happy reading.